I'm reading a lot as a sociologist of religion and a sociologist of social movements, how Christian nationalism is probably the best predictor of Trumpism and racism. It's not white evangelicals, but it's actually this notion that America should be a white Christian nation. So it's the marriage of Christianity plus white supremacy plus conservative political ideology. So this actually can help redeem evangelicals. I think the evangelical church is really on a decline, has a really poor witness. But if we recognize that evangelicals who are more religious are less racist than, let's say, white Christian nationalists, then we see there's a distinct type of Christianity that's driving a lot of the racism. And so understanding that Christian nationalism has also driven and created a lot of anti-Asian hate, right? Christian nationalists agree with the term Chinese virus. Christian nationalists agree that we should ban immigration. If we understand Christian nationalism as the source of the racism against Asian Americans, then we can develop policies, and we could also develop theological approaches and also church movements to resist against Christian nationalism. So by identifying the source of the racism, we can find more effective solutions to the problem. And that's what we're doing now. We're documenting the hate and trying to come up with policies that really get at the issue. The other thing driving racism is this whole yellow peril stereotype that Asians are outsiders coming to invade the West. We should fear them. They're invading us with their diseases. And so U.S.-China relations is really pivotal to this racism. So we're trying to address that aspect of the source of racism. So you got politics, you have foreign policy, you have church life. And so I'm trying to get at the roots to get to real solutions.
Yeah, and as you're sharing that, like some of the saddest forms of racism I see is when it's coming from the church or this like Christian nationalism, like in the name of waving the Bible and the crosses, and like we just saw the insurrection, the domestic terrorism at our capital, where you saw religion being used to kind of incite this violence, the blowing of the shofar, the crosses, Jesus saves signs.
Yeah. It's just, for me, it's just blasphemous and heretical. It really saddens me. I grieve over how the Lord's name is used. I grieve over how Jesus and the cross is born in that way. And so I think we all need to repent of our complicity with this. And I think it's such a bad witness that's why I think, America, the numbers of people not attending church and the numbers of people disaffiliating, and especially millennial and next generations are just leaving the church. So a lot of it's due because of this marriage of the Republican Party with white evangelicalism, right? It is Christian nationalism that's driving the decline of the church in America. And unless we Christians prophesy and stop it, it's going to continue to degrade God's name and lead to a more poor witness. I actually think it's satanic, right? I think it's like, wow, how people could buy into lies. I think how people could pursue and follow those lies. It's sort of like, for me, apocalyptic and end times. So I grew up with that sort of eschatological end times approach, and I see the end times and how people have responded to Christian nationalism.
Yeah, I mean, like whenever I'm chatting with people at work or meeting others, and I kind of share a little bit about my background, that I'm a Christian, I have to almost qualify that now. Because if I say I'm a Christian and I'm white, that has all these implications that I'm part of the Trump movement, that I'm like in favor of this, right? Because all that stuff is kind of combined together. And so even now today, I'm like, I have to qualify myself. I tell people I'm a Christian, that I'm not part of that hate, that nationalism that's going on.
Yeah. So any evangelical group has to really consider, do we want to continue holding this label when it's so politicized, right? And in a lot of senses, I think, it's a political term and not a theological perspective. And so we should get rid of it. But again, I think the concept of Christian nationalism can be used a lot more. It's more appropriate than calling people white evangelicals all the time, because I think that's the constellation of beliefs and ideologies that's driving a lot of it, not necessarily evangelicalism itself. So, I mean, I even appreciate the term white evangelicalism because I could be evangelical because I'm not white. It sort of like buffers me a bit, but I think it is a real contested term. And I know Evangelicals for Social Action, a group that does a lot of social justice work, they changed their name to Christians for Social Action because then you don't have to explain yourself all the time.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out this video clip from the Delgado podcast. To get more videos like this, simply subscribe here on YouTube. You can also download the full episode of each show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or your favorite podcast player. Take care.